Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where we discover the communities that are making a difference in the lives of others. Our self-discovery is something we are all making on our life's journey. Here you will find the people that will be your guidance, that will be your inspiration, that will be there for you in support on your journey of life. Do enjoy. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Their Lives Matter. You're right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest back here again is Phyllis Ayman. We are going to be talking about Senior Straight Talk. We're going to be talking about her new book, which I've forgotten to write down the title here, of Dignity and Respect. Are aging parents getting what they deserve? Did you get that, folks? Dignity and respect. Are aging parents getting what they deserve? The book is on Amazon. We're going to be talking about that today. We're going to be talking about the whole crisis in nursing homes and the whole way this calamity has happened through COVID, of what's going on, and also the attitude towards our aging nation. Hey, I'm a senior too. There is no way I am written off yet. We still have so much to contribute and so much to enjoy in life. This isn't, as one senator said, oh, the aged are willing to die for the youth. No, sorry. We've already served you. It's time now to serve ourselves. We've left you with a legacy. Take it and run. But this is not the time for us to die for you. We're not in that kind of war. But we are in a war where dignity and respect needs to step up, and where we need to actually look at what the effects of this COVID is doing, well, however much you want to deny it. She says the story begins from the inside of COVID-19 storm, which raged our nation's nursing homes, affecting over 1 million residents and the healthcare workers who are the true unsung heroes working here. It offers a grand perspective for how it felt inside the nursing home, especially the lack of PPE that impacted the spread of the virus. Dignity and Respect continues tracing the story of the ill effects of the isolation, the loneliness of our older adults, whether they are living in nursing homes or amongst us in our nation's community, and goes on to address our attitudes towards aging and older adults. Oh, we're on a topic. We are. It's one of my, it's one of my pet peeves. You know, the way I hear people talk about our seniors as if we've had our day, and you know, it's now move over for the youth, and you can just be put out to pasture. And if the field's contaminated, who cares? And you know what? We do, because we've still got a lot of living to do. And those that are in nursing homes have given their lives over to people in trust. Their families couldn't take care of them, because most families are in dual income and they've got kids to raise, and it's hard to be there with somebody either with dementia or just needs. And they put them into a nursing home where they think they're going to get loving care. And we know that there's an awful lot of horror stories in nursing homes even before COVID. But since COVID came about, it has put the spotlight on nursing homes, on the lack of preparation, and also the amount of deaths, even daily. We're hearing the amount of deaths that are going on in nursing homes, and you would have thought they would have learned from the beginning of the pandemic. So much to talk about here, love, isn't there?
Oh, there surely is. Thanks so much, Sarah, for having me. You know, it's interesting what you said just as you started. I was at I don't want to call it a gathering, because it was a friend of mine who opened a gallery. So she's having the opening over several days, so we could socially distance. So I wanted to put that out there that way. But I was talking to a gentleman last night, and he was saying about, he's in his 50s, he was saying, and he was going on about some people he worked with, and that older people, the unfortunate part is that they lose their faculties a little bit, or they start to decline, they lose their memory. So of course we started getting into a back and forth discussion. And one thing he said was, well, he knows this man who's 82, but he's as sharp as a tack. Mm-hmm. So I tried to explain to him the fact that he's using the word but He's as
Yes.
sharp as a tack. It's already an ageist kind of
Mm-hmm.
point of view. Then
Mm-hmm.
he already has this attitude that older people are normally not sharp as a tack. And like this guy is the exception. And he couldn't get it. He wouldn't get it. He couldn't get it. And this is part and parcel of what you're talking
Yeah.
about. It's so entrenched in our societies. Um, you live in Canada
Mm-hmm.
and I'm here in the US. But in many societies around the world, I have found out more than I really originally thought that as you become older, um, your relevance, you're not as relevant. You don't really have a purpose. You fulfilled your purpose in life, your path.
Your
If you've had
obligation.
a,
Yeah.
exactly. If you've had a family, you've done that. And thank you very much. We're finished with you now, and you're finished altogether. And as we spoke about before we started, there are many of us, because I'm 67. I'll be 68 in a few weeks. And I feel like I'm in 2.0, profession 2.0. I'm in
Mm-hmm.
a whole totally different point. I've now written 3 books and
Mm-hmm.
looking at broadcasting opportunities. I never would have thought of that before.
Exactly. Exactly. We've done, quote, quote, our duty. We raised the 2.5 kids, the picket
Yes,
fence and,
right.
contributed to society and volunteered and, worked and did all of that. We've done all of that. And then it came to the time that the children left home. And then it was like, okay, life isn't over yet. Maybe I'm still working in a dead end job or a job that I just did to put food on the table. But what about me now? It's my time. And that's, our self-discovery. It doesn't stop, at a certain age. I started broadcasting, doing these shows at 57. I'm now 66. And I love what I do. I found my meaningful purpose, my calling in life. I'm going to do it until I'm blind, deaf, and dumb,
Uh,
right?
I I'm with you 500% because like I said, I never would have thought of this. I started my radio show over a year ago, but in July transitioned it to a podcast,
Mhm.
Senior Straight Talk, as you mentioned.
Yes, I like that.
I'm
We've got some
loving
straight talking to do.
Exactly. I love it. I feel like I'm finding my place. I
Yes.
started these news tidbits now 3 times a week. Senior News for Today. They're on the YouTube channel. The writing, I feel like I'm actually next week. I'm filming a TV promo. I want it to be like a talk show.
Hmm.
I like the View type of show where another gal and myself talk about the issues that are pertinent to seniors, the community at large. And I'm really hoping that maybe some local television station will pick it up, once a week where we can have these great discussions. I mean, she's a few years behind me. Um, I think it has a lot of value. People are interested in these topics.
We
They're
also
important,
got to remember that we are the baby boomers,
right?
right? So, there has never been this amount of people on the planet of this age group,
Correct.
right? And what we're realizing, instead of putting people out to pasture or go onto your rocking chair and start knitting, your life is over, or, you're now just the grandparents to play with the grandkids, and, play chess or something somewhere. It's that how vibrant we are,
Right.
how we're in that rediscovery of something else, of passion. Everybody that's 60 plus that stepped into something new, they're doing it because it comes from the core passion, and
Right.
it comes from the life experience. It comes from
Yeah.
the realizing the gift that they are, their contribution. And if instead of looking to put us out to pasture, and you looked at all the absolutely orchard of wisdom that
Right.
lies with our elderly, and how, working alongside of us, of how much you could learn, that instead of it would take you 40 years to learn, you'd be fast tracked.
Right. Right.
You know, it's like, hello, folks, your cell phone, your computer, your TV, your everything that is your instant today, your internet came from a senior.
Well, what I point out, something I say in my book is that yes, you can hit a search engine and
Hmm.
put in something and you can get information, but that's just words. That's just information. It's just facts. You have to really getting it from somebody who lived it, you get the
Yes.
wealth of the experience. It becomes an entirely different matter when you hear it from somebody who lived it.
Yes.
Um,
Been there, done that.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And, there's something that you said at the top, and I trying to get people, it's all about language and verbiage and all of that thing. And it's just what you said. There's this idea that we put somebody someplace, we put
Mm,
them in a nursing home, we put them in assisted living. It's very much takes away people's autonomy.
mm.
Instead of thinking of it as another transition, another move, we're always moving and transitioning from the time we're younger. We usually, move. Is a lot of us go to college. Maybe we move into a college dorm, or maybe we then move in with a roommate, or then a partner, or then maybe we get married. But we're always moving, right?
Yes.
But
It's called
somehow,
progress.
when we get to this stage, somebody puts you someplace.
Yeah.
So all of a
The
sudden, you're
cupboard.
like a flower pot, right? You're like a flower pot, a plant, and somebody puts you over there, and they continue watering you until you die.
When they remember. Yeah.
Exactly. You think about it that way, it's terrible, but that's kind of what it is. Instead of thinking that's just another transition in life, people can no longer live in the environment they were in for a variety of reasons, maybe physical, maybe cognitive, it could be many things. So maybe they just don't want to, and
Right.
they just move to another environment. That doesn't mean that they can't continue to have a life worth living. As Dr. Bill Thomas, the title of his book, Life Worth Living. If people haven't read that, I recommend that they do, because it's an eye-opening experience. That's how
Mm.
he became my personal and professional hero. And he wrote the foreword for my book.
Oh,
So
wonderful. Wonderful.
yeah, I was very proud of that.
You know, we were talking before the show, this big word that, as mothers and grandmothers, etc., that we use a lot, called common sense.
Yes.
And at the present moment, and that's partly because of your political hysteria, a constant tornado of misinformation, of fear, of stirring up the worst in us,
Mm.
and people getting caught in that whirlwind, and the hate that it spewed. And I saw somebody with a T-shirt, "I'd rather get COVID than wear a mask." It's
And
I would like to look at all of these people and say, do you want to be a murderer?
I mean, true.
Because, let's point it as facts. Let's talk as it is. Straight talk here.
Right.
You denying wearing a mask, washing your hands, or social distancing affects somebody. Maybe they're young, but they go home to
Right.
their parents or their grandparents, or they
Right.
cross somebody along the way, because now this virus is out of control and it's spreading even more, manifesting as it goes. It is a act of not only disrespect but murderous. you know
It's interesting that you say that, because um, this is quite a number of weeks ago when the virus started spiking in Wisconsin, I think it was. I remember hearing a news article on TV that said that they thought one of the reasons it was spiking in nursing homes in that area was because the
Mhm.
kids had gone back to college, and then they were congregating in communities outside of their dorm, or local
Mhm.
restaurants or bars, whatever it was. This was just one journalist's take on it. I'm not saying these are facts, but this is the report as it came through. And then those people went back out into their communities and their families, who in turn, maybe some of those people worked in a nursing home, maybe they had families in nursing homes and they visited them. And that's how they thought they traced the
Yes.
spike of the virus in the nursing home at that period of time happened, was because of the community spread. And
Right.
interestingly enough, on Senior News for Today, it's on my YouTube channel, Phyllis Ayman Associates, and it's Senior News for Today. And just today, I spoke about that very thing, that they feel that the spike in the nursing homes again is really the result of the spike in the community at large.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost because it's an invisible disease and it's a killer.
Right.
Now, we're getting an awful lot of people that, that are saying, I didn't have a temperature. I had a slight cough, but most of it, I was so tired. I was flattened.
Right.
Right. And actually, I had surgery last week, and, generally due to anesthetic, I'm always pretty wiped out for a couple of days, but it was like a week. I would do a show, and then I could feel myself melt off the seat
Oh,
and go and have a nap for a couple of hours. And it was
right.
like, and it was like, of course, in your mind, it's like, COVID, did I
Right,
take
right,
myself to the
right.
hospital? Did I, what are the signs? And as an asthmatic, I know that if I got it, it's going to go straight to the lungs, but you
Right.
can't help it because every
Right.
time you hear the news, it's, the people talk about, but this is the reaction I got and I didn't even know I had it. There was a woman being interviewed by Maria Schreifer the other day, and she was saying that her husband got it, and then she got tested. She had to leave her kids. She lived across, went into the garage room above the garage, and directed the kids from there. And her company tests, and this is another thing, you're charging people for testing.
Right.
Listen, anyway, her company tested everybody, even her kids, and they all had it,
Oh,
and
wow.
and they didn't feel sick at all. And so,
Right.
now we're looking at it where the symptoms that we're originally, told to look out for, in the symptoms now are virtually nothing. You can be a carrier and just feel a little under the weather, and just put it off as a cold or something like that,
Right.
and it's spreading so much faster now. It's almost out of control, reaching its peak, hopefully before
I
it burns out.
agree.
But
I agree. I have to say, in the during that March and April and May, I happen to have been working in nursing homes. Then I'm a speech pathologist. As people who know me or listen to the podcast know, I'm a speech pathologist, and some people had gotten in touch with me and asked me to help out in the nursing home. And that it was I started helping before the COVID came along, and then it was during that period of time. And so there were a couple that the first couple of weeks when we had sufficient PPE, because in the beginning we didn't. I won't even say sufficient. When we had some PPE, it's truly debilitating. It's
yes.
very, very difficult. You're working, and you're working close to people, and you're fearful for them. You're
Mm.
fearful for yourself. You're fearful for your family. So that all compounds the the feeling that you have wearing the PPE, but it really is debilitating. But anyway, there were a couple of days I came home in the evening and I felt a little weak. I felt feverish. I felt warm. And it's just what you say. You
Mm-hmm.
start to say, oh my God, do I have it?
Yeah.
Do I tell anybody? Do I go to the hospital? What, what
And
do
then
I
your conscience goes, well, yes, I need to get tested.
I'm going to work tomorrow. They'll take my temperature. I'll find out. And my daughter came a few times. She lives about 45 minutes from me, and she has her own family. She brought me soup a couple of days, and I shored myself up with stuff. I mean, I don't know that it was that.
Yeah.
We weren't doing testing then. There was no testing then. But they took my temperature every day and I was normal. So I don't know, it could have been anything. It
Yeah,
could
I
have been
know.
as a result of wearing the PPE, but psychologically,
Yeah.
but I have heard reports, Sarah, of people, nurses and respiratory therapists in hospitals with people that have COVID who are receiving respiratory treatment saying, no, it can't be true. I don't have that because it's not real. I don't
Oh, it's
understand.
it's the latest thing is it's something to do with 5G.
Right. Oh,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
I
And
actually heard that in the beginning, in the very beginning. My daughter was saying that actually. As
well,
something
it's
like,
there's news coming out. Russia's very good. China and Russia are very good at getting on social media and stirring
right,
it up. And people, I've got some very, very intelligent colleagues. The work they do is absolutely amazing, but they still think this is a government conspiracy. And I had to put out a show myself because I do my own show every week, Sarah's View of Life, which is just me not interviewing. It's my perspectives on life, and this was a little bit of a rant and rage that I had to do. I had to get off my chest. And I said, will you explain something to me? You're saying the government is forcing you to wear masks. It's a conspiracy to take away your freedom. Now think about it. There's a camera on every corner,
right,
everywhere you go. That camera is watching you and everything you do. And the algorithm of
right,
your life is there, right? You're wearing a mask. They can't identify you. How
right.
does this benefit them? right?
Oh, that's, I
It
love
is the
that.
last resort for them, for you to wear this
Right,
rib because it's meant to save lives. But when you have a POTUS that, was denying it anyway,
right,
and when he got it before, oh, good, he's going to get to understand it firsthand. But of course, he got the king's,
right,
treatment and come back and said, oh, it's nothing. Then he
right,
told everybody else, okay, I'll get it and it's going to be nothing. I'm going to be fine. And then how are you? You're
right.
300,000 dead?
Right, absolutely. It's interesting that you say that because before the show, we were also talking when people say about taking away their rights, but
Mm-hmm.
you now have to wear a seatbelt in your car.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and doesn't that take away your rights? You can be ticketed if you're caught without one.
Right.
You have to, what else will we say? Oh, there is places you cannot smoke
Mm-hmm.
indoors.
Mm-hmm.
Even let's say nursing homes, if they're a smoke-free environment, you have to stand 30 feet away from the door to smoke.
Mm-hmm.
But there are many places where you cannot smoke any longer. Isn't that taking away your freedom? Now, the reason you can't smoke in certain open places or restaurants is because it infringes on the rights of other people and
Exactly.
their health and well-being. So isn't the mask basically the same thing? I don't really understand that. Can you
No,
explain
no,
to me?
but it was the shoot stirrer. I'd love to say, but a shoot stirrer, right? Stirring it up, and all the conspiracy theorists and the Quinon,
Right, right,
which got the stories that were coming out of that, which was like,
right. No,
are you
I
for
can't
real?
even go there. That's a whole nother
Yeah,
thing.
it's
Right, right,
and it what it does is while you're so busy being angry and it's taking away my rights and this and that, you have elongated this disease.
right,
We could have brought it right down to a very low level, and then with these vaccines, we could have got this and in control,
I,
where everybody could have gone back to work and everything else. But no, you had to deny it, you had to fight it, you had to rally, huge big rallies, and deny it that it ever existed. And now what are we looking at? And of course, yes, it's the elderly that are dying the most because they're the most vulnerable. But
right.
we're seeing, I know that a 17-year-old who was very healthy died,
Right. Oh,
right?
yes. I've known several people. I knew a respiratory therapist in his 40s who passed away. I known several people.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you say that because there are statistics in this. As I was saying earlier, the number of cases has quadrupled in nursing homes from May to October. Now that doesn't include nursing. That's not only nursing home residents, but we're talking about healthcare workers.
Mm-hmm.
So these are people who are trying to do their best, caring for people under extraordinary circumstances without the proper equipment. And then they go home to their families.
Yeah.
And their families not only consist of younger ones, they may also consist of older ones.
Yep.
And they themselves, some of them may be older. So it's not just about older people over there. What about the people who are working in these environments that are caring for these people?
And
And
very often they're working in multiple,
correct,
right? They're not just working at one. They're going now, because hours cut or budgets or this or that,
correct,
they're having to go and work in another nursing home. Right.
right,
And they get tired because they're looking after the people that are sick and they're going home. I mean, I heard the other day of an entire family wiped out.
right, yeah.
Right. It's
So it's a scary proposition,
mm,
and it was I wasn't going to write this book at this time. I happened to be watching a webinar, and the person giving the webinar was from a publishing company, and he was saying that you can relaunch a book. And my book last year, when you interviewed me, was Overdue: Quality Care for Our Elder Citizens.
mm,
I said, you know what, maybe I'll relaunch that book. And then when I thought about it, I said, no, this is a different story in a
yeah,
way. It's the same story, but a different
a
story.
different chapter.
A different, yes. And
Yeah.
so that's why I titled it Dignity and Respect: Our Aging Parents Getting What They Deserve. And that's why I say it starts at COVID. So it's kind of a different story. It's the same story, but a different story, starting
Yeah.
in a different place. Um,
And You know, there's always a lot of reference on social media, especially on like Facebook, when people say, do you remember this or do you remember that? And a lot of it is referring, you know, to seniors where there was this thing called courtesy, respect, you know, not just the door opening, but good day, thank you,
Right.
please, taking the time to listen to each other. I mean, we've all been young, you know, I know it's hard to believe. Look, we've got gray hair. We were young and rebels once, you know, and
Really?
defiant and everything else. And, you know,
But I think
we're
I'm carrying that.
70s chicks,
Right.
right?
Listen, but Sarah, I think I'm carrying that with me because I guess some people could say I'm a rebel now, right?
Yes, but we're a rebel with a cause now.
Yes, we're rebels. We're totally just rebels for the heck of being rebels, right?
And so, you know, that we understand, you know, I even have reflections back on my youth and like, you know, was I as caring as I should have been? You're in the euphoria of life and you just want to get out and grab it. And you are self-centered in your youth.
Yes.
Still had respect for our elders, the way that we talked to them, the way we respected,
Right.
especially as our parents were in the war, well, you know, mine was. And it, you know, it's, we respected that their sacrifice gave us the
Right.
freedom to be, right? And the innovations that came out of that, the
Absolutely.
creativity and you know, looking at our parents who always wanted to make sure their cupboards were full of food because when's the next famine, you know,
Right.
and wouldn't eat leftover food in case it went off, you know, and you could understand, you know, that kind of fear there. And they obviously they carried that kind of fear of what happened through the war with
Mhm.
them. And it's like I interview an awful lot of veterans of different ages, and what I love about the veterans that I interview are the fact that many of the time they've been left behind by government. And it's
Mhm.
like, you know, you're even the POTUS, you know, you're a loser if you came back flawed,
Wow.
right? Or you died, you know, which is, oh, yeah. Um, but what I respect about them is they see the need because
Right.
it's the need they had, they needed.
Right.
And what they did is they created the solution for the other veterans going through the problem,
Right.
right?
Right.
Now, that is also seniors. We see a need, we see a gap. What do? We roll up our sleeves and say, well, this needs to be addressed.
Well, I
We've got to
agree.
find a solution on this.
You know, one of the dedication to my book, and I've said this many times through the years. So I've worked in nursing homes from the time I was in my 20s until, you know, recently when I stepped out of it to start to do this. And like I said, sometimes somebody will call me and ask me to cover. I don't think they're going to be calling me very much anymore, but that's fine. That's fine. Except that I do miss working with
Yeah.
I do miss that part of it because that's where my heart is. But
Mm.
anyway, you know, I say, listen, when I was even in my 50s, and then because I thought I was getting up there, because that was my way of thinking then.
Hmm.
Of course, in my 60s, I see it differently. Um, and I would meet somebody in a nursing home who was maybe in their, I don't know, 70s or 80s, depending. And I would say, oh, they would tell me how their age. I don't try not to use the word old because that reinforces that
Yeah.
way of thinking. So I asked them their age, and they'll ask me my age. I say, well, I'm nearer than further. I'm close to you than you think, closer to you than you think. And when I tell them my age, they say, oh, you're just a kid. Now,
Yes.
it sounds like such a funny thing, but
Yeah.
when I reflect on it, I said, well, even if I was 60 and they were 75 or 80 or 85, I am a kid
Yeah.
because when they were 15, I was just born. Or when they
Right.
were 25, I was just born. So, relatively speaking, I am a kid and I don't have the 15 years of experience or 25 years
Mm.
of experience that they have. So I still feel that way now
Yes.
at
I live with an
67.
87-year-old.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
she'd still be working if she could.
Right.
There's no work right now. She still drives. She's stronger and tougher than me,
Uh-huh.
obstinate like crazy, absolute sweetheart. When she does a puzzle, there's nothing in the world. I mean, she is just completely and utterly engrossed. Um, Short-term memory loss, you know, getting quite bad. And this is where I'm here to make sure that, you know, things aren't forgotten. But just an amazing woman. And like her enthusiasm for Christmas is so childlike.
Mhm.
you know, and she had polio when she was young, 4 years in hospital, God knows how many
Oh, wow.
operations. She lost her twin sister at the same time.
Oh, my.
Her fiance was killed 4 days before the wedding.
Oh, gee.
So, and during COVID, she lost her brother to a heart attack, and she's lost 6 colleagues and friends to COVID. And yet, you know, she just still such a fighter and still goes on. And it's like, no, my father told me, you never give in, you never give
Right.
up. And there is something about our seniors in, you know, 70s and 80s and 90s that's still the trooper. You
I
know, still,
agree.
you know, that fire is like, it ain't over yet, you know.
Right.
And I did a show the other day with somebody, Lionel Friedman, who is, you would love to interview. I promise you, you would. He's,
Oh, you should connect me with him.
I will do. I will do. We did a two-part series on you know on his life, and you know he's a movie director, a documentarist, a cinematographer, and his you know his whole world has been that. Plus, he's written numerous books, and one of them they adapted and made into Hollywood on Netflix, taken from a book called Full Service, from a guy that worked in Hollywood and has all the juicy stories, which is really interesting. The mountainful, I mean, we did 2 shows, at least kind of 3 hours accumulated. There was so much more to learn from him. There's so many more stories there. There's so much that this man has done. This is a celebration. This is a
Absolutely.
nugget. And why are we posturing these people or ignoring them because they're in their
Oh,
70s or their 80s? I interviewed somebody Wednesday who's in his late 80s, who's was a concert pianist at
uh,
9, a prodigy, and the work that he does
who was
in
that?
court, that is Irvin Laszlo.
Oh, the reason I ask is because my first dream in life was to be a concert pianist. And I studied classical piano for 12 and a half years.
Ah, well, another one you would love will be Esther Schifrin. She's written poetry every single day of
Oh,
COVID.
wow.
And on there on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and it's a rhyme to what's ever happening on the day. Absolutely amazing. She's an author, she's a pianist, she's an artist, she's chutzpah. And I had her along with the Pink Lady, who was 86, Esther 83. And these are women that, you know, she's the one saying it ain't over until I say it's over. You know,
Right.
and the 86-year-old was her own TV show. You know,
Right.
and the thing is, it's attitude. They're
I
really
agree.
grateful for everything they've had in life, despite what they've lost.
I
And their
agree.
attitude is, I'm still alive, mate. Don't count me out.
And I'm with you 100%. Like I said, I never would have thought of entering into this, this path years ago. If anybody would have ever told me
Mhm.
that,
You're
as a
going to be
matter
a podcaster. What's that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, November 1st, 2018 was I did my first radio interview at a local radio station, Greenwich Business Talk Radio. I had this idea that this had to get out there, and I called the radio station a few times, and then this finally I connected with someone, and the woman called me back, and it turns out that the show was we recorded on November 1st. I said, "Oh, this is going to be." I don't know if people believe in numerology or numbers,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it was
Oh, yeah.
all ones. I said, okay. And afterwards, I emailed her to thank her. And she said to me, "Oh, I could see you having your own show someday." And I was like, I don't know what she's talking about. I'm not even thinking about that. But it's interesting how that has come to me,
Yeah.
how I've developed, how my message has developed, how I've um, I feel like I'm in a way, I've heard this before, but somebody had said it to me a long time ago before I heard it in the public domain, like I'm the voice of the voiceless, like I'm part of a voice of a voiceless. And,
Yes.
and, and that's part of what I'm bringing to the table. I think what I bring is a little unique because I've worked in so many skilled nursing facilities.
Hmm.
So I have a different the boots on the ground perspective from the inside, which you don't often get. Um, and so through this process, I have really feel like I have found myself, like I had
Yes.
found my voice in being the voice, trying to be the voice for people who need a voice. I have found my own voice.
Amen. I mean, I've been doing this 8.5 years now, and we have 2,700 shows. I've done at least 2,000 of those myself. And it's what I've learned about myself during this period. who I've become because of the process.
Right,
When you look at the news, you think, I wouldn't blame God for pressing delete on humanity.
right.
But then you do an interview with somebody who's stepped up like you, who's doing the straight talk, who's calling it as it is, bringing the attention to a subject that everybody wants to just brush under the carpet, who
Right,
is giving people that voice elsewhere. This is the reason I do what I do,
right.
because we
No,
need those voices. We need you to listen to the people that are on the battlegrounds, or have taken that journey, who have something wonderful to share, because it's now something you can put in your backpack and carry forth with you, no matter
correct.
your age, on your journey of life.
Correct. There isn't a person that I speak to that sooner or later in the conversation they'll tell me it was their grandmother, their
Mm,
uncle, their wife's father, their friend's mother. Um, when these things happen to people on a moment's notice, and they're not prepared for it because they don't think about it. This is why I tell people to get this information in advance. I know people think, well, it's about getting older. They feel like if it's like a cold, they'll catch it, if they talk about it.
yes.
But the reason that you want to get this information is because when something does happen, you want to be prepared. And when I tell people is, we do all prepare, because you have car insurance, you have life
Mm,
insurance. I have burial insurance I bought a year ago. I'm not planning on using it
you're
anytime
right.
soon, right? But nevertheless, this is inevitably what happens. So about, I think it's earlier this year, I don't think it was last year, my daughter texted me that her friend's father was in the hospital and needed to move into a nursing home situation for short-term rehabilitation. And could I help them find a place that would be appropriate for him? And that he has a trach. Now, that was my specialty, by the way. And my passion was working with people who are ventilator dependent and trachs. That's why this whole COVID thing
Yeah.
really interests me, because that's my passion. I worked with people with respiratory issues for so many years, and started a lot of clinical programs for people with respiratory conditions. But anyway, so I get on the phone. I don't really recommend a place, but I give people the information they need to ask the right questions, or even maybe help them ask the questions when they call a place. Well, they can't visit anymore, but if they call a place, or I get on calls with people, that's part of what I help people with. So I got on the phone with the gal, and what had happened to her father. Unexpectedly, they found a lump in his throat. It turns out to be throat cancer. And then he had chemo, and then he couldn't swallow anymore, and then he couldn't breathe. So now he had this tube, he had that tube, and now he had to go to a nursing home, or a short-term rehab, we call them in nursing
Hmm.
homes, for rehabilitation. Now, they never expected that to happen.
Nope.
No, no. I
Nope.
mean, nobody expect these things to happen, and none of us want these things to happen, but they do happen.
Kids don't like their parents getting older because they don't like them getting health problems. And, most of
Right,
us do. It's wear and tear. It's also the fact that we may have been brought up with better food nutrition, but we also weren't brought up with this with the not substitutes, the vitamins and the minerals and
right.
this and
The
that.
supplements.
Thank you. And we didn't board up with, like, take time for you.
Right,
Everything was, we're there, the sacrificial lamb for everyone else, and that's what
right,
you're meant to do, right? And that permission to place value upon yourself, where our younger people now, it's like, no, I'm taking a mental health day, or
right,
I'm doing this for me. And it's like, I never had time to even go to the bathroom.
right, exactly.
So, we're in a different era now. And of course, yes, we do have things that break down. And I have fibromyalgia and asthma, and my son sees me, struggling sometimes. And every time I would go and see him, he would try and tell me what to do to make it better. And then just one day I just, grabbed his hands and said, I love you very much, but stop treating me as if I'm broken.
Right, right, right,
This is
right.
something I have to manage.
Right.
It is a disease that is purely, you have to manage it. There is no
Right.
cure for it, even though everybody says it's something to do with your mother. It's
Right.
it's a past life thing or whatever. Yeah, all of that is a part of it. Yes, there's a lot of deprogramming that needs to happen, but a lot of it comes from crises to the body, and the body is reacting.
Right.
And you've just got to manage it. And I said to him, what would be the best cure is simply a loving hug. That's all
Right.
I need
Oh,
from you, is a loving hug. Otherwise you're making me feel broken. And he never saw it that way. And if
right.
we look at our parents with what's going wrong with them, instead of, what can I do to support them on this
Right.
journey?
I
Right?
tell people that all the time. How about sitting down with your parents and having a conversation about how they see their life moving forward? What is important to them? What are their needs? Too many times, and I'm sure you've heard this or experienced it. People may be going either to an assisted living or a nursing home, and either they go without the person who is they're looking for, or they go with the person, but that person isn't part of the conversation because it's a put kind of thing.
Yes.
you know and so I encourage people to have these conversations and tell their parents or loved one, listen, we're a team. I want the best for you, for your health, and your safety and well-being, and we're a team moving forward. This is not that I'm trying to
Get rid of you.
put something on you or make decisions for you. It's interesting because just last night, I was visiting with my daughter, and she was telling me that her father, I'm divorced for many years, that he's starting to have real cognitive difficulties. I mean, some serious things. And she's wondering about assisted living, or maybe should they have a new home, should they fix up the basement and he move into the basement? And I said, well, maybe it would be a good idea to have this conversation with him. Ask him how he feels about what's happening to him, what kind of decisions he would like to make, where would he like to move to if that becomes a reality. um, have this conversation. I think
Respect. That's the
people
dignity and respect you're talking about, right?
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
have this conversation about that. And when you talk about self-care, I actually trademarked a word, empathy, IMPATHY. And I
Mm.
actually wrote a course on resilience. It's called Resilience Toolbox Secrets. It's on my website, phyllisayman.associates.com. But I wrote this course with healthcare workers and caregivers in mind initially,
Mm.
because it's just what you said. We don't think about taking any time for ourselves.
Right.
We think it's all about giving, 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 giving. But you can't pour anything from an empty cup.
Hello.
So if you're depleted and you
Yes.
haven't put anything in, you're not going to really be that great for the person that you want to be there for, or
Right.
that you're trying to be there for. So
Yeah.
self-care is really important. I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, I had another wonderful Dan Perkins, who I think again you would love to interview. He wrote a book on dementia for children. Why doesn't Grandma know me anymore?
Oh,
And
I love that.
but he's also, we did a show on who takes care of the caregivers.
Right. Well,
Right.
that's it.
Right.
Right.
And that's the thing, is that, well, they're paid to do that. But, they've got their own families, and now they're coming and looking after you. When do they have time to look after themselves? And they can only
Correct.
give their abundance. And if there's not a lack of abundance, what are they giving?
Right.
Fumes. Right. And
Correct.
then they become the vulnerable and the sick. And then who looks after them? Right.
Correct.
You
I
know,
mean, it's a snowball effect. I mean,
yes.
everybody knows that when you're flying on when you're on
Yeah.
an airplane, you get
Absolutely.
those initial instructions. They tell you when the gas mask descends, put it over your own nose and mouth first before you try and help the next person.
Well, hopefully
Because,
it's not a gas mask.
right,
Hopefully it's
not
an
a gas
air mask.
mask. Sorry.
Euthanasia. How happy gas, and everybody starts laughing.
I can't believe believe I said that, but okay, whatever. Someplace else. But it's interesting that I just said that, made that reference about an oxygen mask, because isn't that the same concept of the masks with the COVID?
Yes,
You
yes,
can't,
yes.
you're trying to help the next person by putting something over your own mouth and nose.
It's all there. There's the common sense, you know.
Right, that's the common sense.
I want to go back to dementia there. I had this wonderful nurse who is a dementia and Alzheimer's nurse, and she eventually left the profession to have her own practice in helping people where families are being diagnosed, somebody's being diagnosed with the dementia or the Alzheimer's. And while they're still cognizant, to ask the questions, where do you want to go? Let's choose the facility. Or
Right,
what is going to happen? Have them be a part of it. They
right,
may forget it down the road, but their subconscious, their psyche knows
correct,
that they've had an input there, right?
right,
And that helps along with the process of the dementia and the Alzheimer's, of
absolutely.
knowing that they're not going to be a burden on their family. Choices have been made when the time is right. And it's the empowerment not only for them, but the ease and the empowerment for the family as well. And we don't think about that, do we? We wait until the problem is so bad and then toss them out. It's
Correct.
switching time.
Correct. It's just what I was saying before about either you could say planning by choice rather than crisis, or
Yeah,
being proactive rather than reactive, or
yeah.
being informed is being forearmed, whatever all of that is. And it's interesting what you say about dementia, because people think that people with advancing cognitive decline don't know what's going on. But the reality is, Maya Angelou said many years ago, that people don't necessarily remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. Those
100%.
feelings stay inside a
Yeah.
person. And
And that's
so,
why they become fearful
correct. So this
and
is
play
this is
up.
a very important thing, to set the stage for that, to lay that foundation, so that both parties, the person who's the caregiver or the loved one in the family, and that person really come together as a team. And as you say, even if the person doesn't remember it down the line, there will hopefully be a sense of peace, a foundation that
Yeah.
was laid.
The
Uh,
psyche
be-
does.
yes,
The
because
brain might, but the psyche does.
yes,
And they kind of, in the cellular, know they made that choice and they're not fighting it. Um,
correct.
I have a friend whose husband has got the onset of dementia, and he totally, no, forget it. And when he stopped working, it was just literally bathrobe, TV, and smoke. That's it. Not do anything. No hobbies. No reading. No nothing. No walking. Nothing. And he's just going down that road. And she told him, you get to that level where you start wandering off, or you do this and you do that, I can't cope with it. You will go into a home, and you can be a part of that choice now or not. And for him, it's like, nope, never going to happen, not happening. And
Right.
that makes it harder, yes.
It
But
does make
that's
it
where you have to become educated, either as the
correct.
spouse or the children, right?
And not only that, sometimes you need a third party.
Yeah,
Sometimes you need a facilitator to help people understand, to bring everybody to find a consensus.
yeah,
Sometimes, there are relationship issues. We all have relationship
yeah,
issues. We're all human beings. That baggage can impact those responses to each other. Whether it's a husband and wife, or children and family, there are all kinds of different we all carry that baggage, and
yeah,
those influence those decisions, and um, those reactions that people have. A while ago, I interviewed somebody. It was an assisted living facility, and I was going to be doing a presentation, and the regional manager had told me a story about her mother, I think it was. The father had died many years previously, and she lived up in this area where I am in the Northeast, and the sister lived, I think it was in Florida. And the mother was becoming increasingly more dependent in her care needs and also her cognition needs. And the sister was really struggling, as you say, about caring for somebody else and not doing anything for yourself. And she was really deteriorating. And so the sister who lived up here had suggested that maybe it was time to look into an assisted living or some kind of other living environment for her mother. And her response was that she couldn't do it because she promised her father
yeah.
15 years previously when he passed away that she would never do that. So
Right.
there's people don't even know the promises that people make, the guilt they feel.
Mm.
There's social pressure, religious pressure, cultural pressure. We have to start to talk about these things as a community because there are more, as you say, there's a greater number of older people. And as science has allowed people to live longer, now people are living longer. And now there are other kinds of difficulties that come along with that. So
Right.
how are we going to approach that?
You know, that the other question comes into my mother would not go into a nursing home. They nearly killed her in the hospital by giving her the wrong medication.
Mhm.
And my sister was very on top of them. In fact, they become so afraid of my sister that, after that, they're, golden gloves completely. Um, but there was literally a woman next to her that had no family to talk for her, and they were literally starving her to death. And
Mhm.
my mother saw that, and the horrific tales that come from nursing homes, and she said, "You're never putting me in a nursing home. I'm dying my own home." She did at 95, but my brother ended up looking after her. My sister would come down and give him respites. He ended up having a heart attack looking after her.
Mm.
She got a hernia that she couldn't attend to, ended up, now it's massive and they can't operate on her. And both of their healths deteriorated.
Right.
And, but my mother was like, I will not go into a nursing home. And, the person I'm living with, I will not. And especially now, they just look at it as a death pit. And so
Right.
this is going to have a huge effect on nursing homes, because who wants to go in one?
Correct.
But
Correct.
it's also revealed so much of the mismanagement that's been
Correct.
going on in there anyway. So, what gets me at the present moment is back in March, April, and May, with so many deaths in nursing homes, and realizing what the problem was, and the lack of support, and even having to get, the army in there to help. You knew there was a problem. Why didn't you address it? We're now in the fall where we knew it
Right.
was going to get worse, and now we've got even more deaths.
Right.
Hello, what the hell is going on?
No, I agree with you 100%. And a lot of what I talk about in the book, as you mentioned earlier, is how are we going to move forward and care for older people?
Yes.
Maybe we have to look at these kind of living environments in a different way and reimagine them. Maybe we can't go. I mean, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to go along with business as usual. It
No.
looks like we're going to have to find a different path. So I think people have to come together to find that different path. How are we going to do this in a way that's not only safe for residents, but also for the people that are caring for those residents? That's a huge number of people in our population.
We
People,
also need to look at the cost, because, my mom, through various supports of relatives, had lost her money. She didn't have enough money to go into a proper care home.
mm-hmm,
There's
right.
exorbitant costs that, even if she sold a home, would have gone through, it wouldn't have lasted her lifetime. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to look at that subsidy of costs. We need to look at the people who don't have the money to pay these exorbitant
Right.
prices. Why should their care be less?
I
And
agree.
it's not about, as we've heard so many stories about, of just dumbing them down, leaving them in a chair, shoving food in them, putting them back into bed. It's, I've always said I want to go the way of the golden girls.
Right. I
And
agree with you.
and living with my 87-year-old, I've got a golden girl right here.
Right, right, right,
um, no Blanche though.
right. Oh, okay.
But we are going to be looking at, as we age, of how we want to age. And I think that maybe we are going to see people pool their resources with a bunch of girlfriends or friends or families,
Yes.
and then afford the care to come in and look after you. Because, nursing homes, until they get their act together and until prices reflect the care, we're going to see this as a problem way beyond COVID, aren't we?
Yes, I agree with you 100%. And there are many different kinds of models. There are like there are small residential care homes. There are, like you say, people can cohabitate. They 3 or 4 people can come together, or however many. And then, like you say, pool resources. Maybe you do have a caregiver come in and take care of 3 or 4 people in a small setting. That I think the issue is going to also be that may work well in more suburban
Yeah.
environments. But in the urban communities where the population is so much more dense, what are the possibilities there? I think people really have to start to look at that, because these big box
Yeah.
nursing homes, that are stories high, that
Yeah.
are 3, 4, 500 people. I mean, those situations are ripe for any pandemic type situation. I mean,
Yeah.
what
It
happens
just,
after COVID?
yeah.
I mean,
A
maybe
petri
another
dish,
one.
right?
It's a
Yeah.
petri dish. Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
this has just been terrific, Sarah. I really appreciate the having this conversation with you. When we met the first time, we were really right on point. So this is just so delightful for me to speak with somebody who understands where I'm coming from and has this same passion and point of view. I just love it.
Ditto, darling, and especially with the title of your show, Seniors Straight Talk,
Oh,
because
yeah.
that's one of the things we've had the right to actually do is have
Right.
straight talk. We're going to be respectful and we're going to be nice, but we're going to give it as it is. We haven't got time to fluff up your
Right.
ego, to pander to your
Yeah.
insecurity.
Right.
We're going to call it as it is.
You know,
And,
it's
if you listen, you're going to benefit.
Listen, it's funny that you say that because I don't know how many years ago it was. I must have been in my 40s, I think. I met this woman who was working in a nursing home. And then I met her like a year or two later in another nursing home, a distance away from where the first one was. And she was a pretty straight shooter, this woman. And I mean, she just really said it the way it is. And she said to me, I think she was in her late 60s at the time, maybe. And she said to me, listen, let me tell you something, honey.
When they start off like that.
I listened. So let me tell you something, honey. Once you get to be 50, 60, you earn the right.
Mm-hmm.
You earn the right to say what you want to say the way you want to say it. You'll see when you get there. And I have to say, I didn't understand it then. I couldn't because I hadn't lived that journey yet.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
once I got to my mid 50s, I really saw what she was talking about. And even like a truth to power thing, even the nursing homes that I worked in, I would just, people would say, well, how do you get away with those things? I said, well, I'm not saying anything. I'm not insulting anybody. I'm
Right.
not cursing at anybody. I'm just telling them exactly the way it is. And they respect me professionally. They know I'm not doing it to harm anybody. They may not like exactly what I'm saying, but they know that what I'm saying, deep down, they know it's true.
We don't want fluff.
No, I don't
We don't want
know.
fake news.
No, right,
We want the facts. And yes, there's a way of delivering the facts.
right.
It's if somebody's life is at risk, yes, you want to tell them your life is at risk, and we need to work together to do everything that we can. I know that my dad was with his heart attack at 40, he was told that he had 3 months to live. Now, instead of saying to him, change your lifestyle, change your diet, calm down, he gave him 3 months to live, and as a fighter pilot and a racing car driver,
Oh,
lived
gee.
his life in the fast lane.
Right,
Drank
right,
more,
right.
did more, this and that, and 45 was dead. And I don't agree with that. Don't give people the death sentence. Just say, look, time is limited, still time to turn it around. It's your attitude towards your
Right,
life that's going to make the difference, right?
right.
And we need that. We need kindness and caring and understanding,
I
but we
agree.
also need to give people the honest truth. That's
Yeah,
the
no,
respect.
I agree 100%. And all the person, just like you're saying, has to say is, listen, I don't know what the time is.
Yes.
There's no way for me to know because I don't have a crystal ball. I've heard
Right.
people say that. The reality is, we've all known stories of people who were given a year or 6 months,
Yes.
and then 5 years later, they're
Yes.
still with us. So I don't know what time is left. It might be range 3 months. It might be 3 years. There's no way of telling with the condition you have. My suggestion would be
Yeah.
to live every day to the maximum. That would be my suggestion. And if you could do things that are, contribute to your well-being, if you can change your diet, if you can change, your activity level, and this may, I don't know. I always prefer, listen, as a speech pathologist who's worked with many people who've had strokes, but many, many different situations. or even people on ventilators, and they'd say, well, when do you think I'm going to be able to eat again, if they weren't? Or when do you think I'll be able to speak again? Or when do you think my language is going to come back? I have no clue. And the
Right.
reason I have no clue is because, Sarah, you could get a cold and I could get a cold.
Hmm.
You could be better in 3 days. 3 weeks later, I could still be coughing. It
Right.
has a lot to do with environment, attitude, as you say,
Yes.
self-care, and your own body, your own system.
Yep.
So there's no way of really knowing. So how could you say that in a way to let people do, let them know to do the best for themselves, but not, you don't have a crystal ball. You
Right.
don't,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
that's
you give people
people.
that death sentence, and like my friend Audrey that I live with, she had a friend who went in because he was very tired and always puffed out, and they looked at his heart and said, "You're only using 25%. You're on borrowed time." And he was dead in a couple of weeks. He just gave up. And
Right.
and a woman in her 50s, you've got cancer, and instead of looking at it, okay, it's totally beatable, what do I need to do? There's so much
Right.
information today,
Right.
holistically, etc., on cancer. She was dead. We just gave up. So we've got to realize, as with everything in our life, our choices affect us, and how much we participate in our choices and how we feed them with what optimism, what possibilities. Yes, it could be tiring. Yes, it could be fighting. That's where you invite your own community to give you that moral support, that vibrational support. But there's still a reason to fight for your life. And yes, there is that time where it's like, okay, the fight is no longer in me. I'm willing to surrender. It's time for me to go home. But it's not because you gave up. It's because you just realized that's the knock on the
Right.
door.
And the reality is you may do everything and it may
Right?
not help.
Yeah.
But
You tried though, and that is the
that's
enthusiasm, and that inspires other people.
right. Absolutely. Listen, we've all heard stories and known stories
Mm,
both ways.
yeah.
I knew a gal, she actually passed away a few days before Thanksgiving. She had I think it was pancreatic cancer. I could be wrong, but I think it was. And she, it used to be that pancreatic cancer was a 6-month death sentence.
Hmm.
And she was living with it, quite a long time. So a few years anyway. So, I mean, you just don't know what's possible. What I tell people is the human system is like a car.
Yes.
This is the metaphor that I've been using it for years. You can have a car that has 70,000 miles, 90,000 miles. You could take the best care in the world of that car. But the reality is the car has 70,000 miles or 90,000 miles. And the likelihood is that something is going to go wrong with that car as opposed to something with 20,000
Yeah.
miles. Now, you might take the car in for an overhaul and you think the car is doing great. This has happened to many people with cars. And then a week later, something else happens.
Yes.
It just is what it is. And you did everything right. It's
Yes.
not like you were thinking the car was going to break down again. That was your last thought or wish, but nevertheless, it happened anyway. But you did everything you could to make that car better and with the right attitude and just went along your merry way. And then when the next thing happened, you just said, okay, well, this thing happened now, and I either will pass this by or this will be the end of this car.
Right. Exactly. And I think it's not about the end of your days. It's how you live your days.
I
And
agree.
right now, let's face it, with this pandemic around the world, we're all on borrowed time. Nobody knows because it's such a silent killer, and
I agree.
and can be passed on so easily with people with no symptoms at all. They're the carriers, they pass it on. It can affect anybody at any time. So you can't live in fear, you can't live in paranoia, you can't live in the conspiracy theory. We're going back to that common sense. Do your due diligence. Hands
Right.
wash, mask, make sure that you're keeping your own immune system plump and juicy, and that you are just living the best you can within the parameters of
I
what's being
agree.
set forth right now. And again, that comes down back to a lot of to do with the attitude, being grateful at the present moment that we're not in a war-torn zone, that there
Right.
aren't airplanes bombing us, and that we're not in famine. We're just being asked to mask, wash hands, and distance, respect.
Right.
Where's the big deal, mate?
I agree 100%. And that's why I don't know what when I came up with that title, Dignity and Respect, but once I did,
Yeah,
I said that's the right title for the right time.
100%. And it's beyond even the topic, because
Right,
if you can't give somebody the respect of dignity, then you are totally and utterly dishonoring them. It does not mean you have to agree. It doesn't
right,
even mean that you have to like the person,
correct.
but respect the differences and be dignified about it.
Right, I
Right?
agree.
There's a lot of older people that become cantankerous,
Yeah,
and there goes George again,
right.
and it's respect that that's their life's journey they're playing out.
Correct, correct. And I always tell that to people that, and it's interesting that you use the word their life's journey because I use that expression and those words a lot in talking about people as they get older. They're really advancing in years on their life's journey.
Mhm.
It is a continuation of a life journey. And I'm not crazy about the terminology, although I know the purpose of it and what's behind it and where it comes from about dying with dignity. I say it's about living with dignity until you're not living anymore, until
And
you take
dying with grace.
right, until you take the last breath, you are still living. That's
Yes, yes,
reality. So I
yes,
say it's living with dignity until your last breath.
right.
You're continuing life's journey as you're advancing in years. So it's interesting to me that you use that. We never spoke about that
Mhm.
before, but it's interesting to me that you use those words.
In sync here, girls, in
Yeah,
sync.
we were
you
in
know,
sync the
um,
first time we spoke.
I've got a lot of things wrong with this vehicle. And this vehicle can nowhere, fourth gear, hard to get into.
Right,
Uphill, forget it, you're going to have to push. But that doesn't mean this vehicle still can't go places and still can't do things, right?
correct.
And we understand our limitations. As I said, my companion here at 87 has more strength and more energy than I have. She's like a
Mhm.
sprinter in everything that she does, and I don't have that in me. That's part of my disease is that battery power doesn't hold.
Right,
So does that write me off? No, it just means I go and do where my energy will allow me to do, and where it doesn't, I don't. And
right,
that's where you get to at a certain pace, in a certain pace in life, where you go, I can no longer do that. What's the point of crying? I did it, been there, done
right,
that. What can
right.
I do now?
Now, correct.
What
Right,
in this moment can I contribute? What can
right,
be my meaningful purpose?
right.
How can I make a difference? How can I find something that makes me get up every day?
But I will say something that you said earlier, and I think it is important to say this. If people do want to sit in a rocking chair and knit, if
Yes.
that is what makes them
Yeah.
happy, or taking care of their grandchildren, if that is their passion, that what soothes them, what
Yes.
feeds their soul, that's fine too.
Exactly.
It's just don't sell a person short.
Right.
Just let them
Exactly.
find that thing and allow them to do that thing. And that doesn't matter whether they're living in their own home or living in an assisted living residence or in a nursing home. They still have that ability to explore something that they're passionate about. I've met people in nursing homes who are wonderful artists who had been all kinds of had pursued all kinds of things in their life. They could have still done that while they were in a nursing home environment. Why
Yes.
not?
It's not putting them in a chair and dumbing them down. This is the time for them to express themselves in a realm of safety. And we're the ones that will have the lack, because we are not benefiting from all that wonderful inspiration,
Correct.
that wonderful knowledge. There's a program that puts kids together with seniors to teach them how to
Yes.
use computers. I've what a wonderful thing to do. And of course, there are other programs to do with animals, because we know how much animals speak to the soul.
Oh, yes,
And then
absolutely.
people who work with music,
Right.
which again it transcends everything and goes and speaks to our core, and ignites it. There's so many things that we can do to help seniors, but at the same time learn from them, because it's a
Absolutely.
two-way street. Where is it that
Absolutely.
this is this and this is, we're talking division again? No,
Right.
no,
I
united. That's what we're
agree.
wanting, connection, right?
I agree. I agree. I don't know if your viewers or listeners know about Dan Cohen, who was the founder of Music and Memory. It's now Right to Music. People
Hmm.
can look that up, Dan Cohen, Right to Music, which is all about people finding the music that they love,
Hmm.
and especially people with dementia, how that really, they come alive. It was
Yes,
based on his
yes.
2014 documentary Alive Inside, which was a Sundance Film Festival Audience Choice Award winner. It's a fantastic film. And I would also encourage people to read Bill Thomas's book, Life Worth Living, where he totally transformed nursing homes with animals, with plants,
Yes,
with music.
yes.
I mean, these are things that are possible. There are many places around the country that are adopting this way of thinking and bringing that into environments, living environments, so that people really continue to have a life with purpose and a quality of life.
Yeah,
Um, Unfortunately, there are many places that aren't, and that's really what we're addressing and what my
right.
book addresses.
Yeah.
It's not really talking about the places that are, it's talking about what's possible in the places that aren't, so maybe we can move more of those in
Yeah,
the direction.
let's take what we know works and bring it into the
Correct,
places of
correct,
lack, right?
correct, correct.
I think one of the reasons why we're seeing, again, so many seniors, right, but how many times have I seen another 100-year-old, 118, 100 and
Oh,
this and that,
absolutely.
just had COVID and 100, and it's like,
Right.
stop. I have a theory that they all drink orange pekoe tea because I
Oh,
think
I
I
love
think it's a fermenter.
either that or a shot of scotch or something. I
Oh,
know.
I'm the Scotch one, but like my mum was orange pekoe tea, or Audrey's orange pekoe tea, and a few others. I asked them, in their 80s, and they've still got so much energy. Do you drink orange pekoe tea? Yes, we do, and I think there's something in it. But,
Listen,
but I also think it was a lot to do with being the post-war. We
agree.
came out of times where there had been lack, sacrifice. It was an era of rebuilding.
Hmm.
And it was an era also of being grateful for what we had,
Correct.
because there was so much lack the decade before. And and then of course we came to the 70s, 60s and 70s of of exploration of peace and love, and looking at the goodwill and realizing there's an awful lot more than just the body and flesh. The
Hmm.
soul and the heart and the spirit needed to have a voice as well. That kind of went then to the 80s and the 90s, which was all about more is more, and the
Right,
more you have, the unhappier you are,
right, right,
right? And when we get to this other age, we go, really, where do I want to put my energy?
right. Exactly.
What really is enrichment? What really is abundance? And that's
Right,
making a difference in somebody else's life. That
right. No,
is, bringing joy or bringing information or being supportive, being inspirational. That's really what it is. It's knowing that every day, somewhere, somehow, you made a difference, even if it was just to your fellow man in the nursing home.
I agree, and I hope that this book makes a difference for people. I really hope that people take the opportunity to grab a copy of it and maybe even buy one as a gift, or
Yes.
encourage their friends to buy one. I did a presentation for some people the other day, and towards the end of it, the person who organized it said, "Oh my goodness, do you know how many people I've heard little tidbits of this from?
Mm.
That this can help." I said, because once you start to talk to people,
Yes.
they start to tell you, "Oh, my friend," or "Yes," or "I had this." So I really hope people grab a copy of the book. It's on Amazon, as you said. Dignity and Respect: Are Our Aging Parents Getting What They Deserve? It became, as I said, a #1 new release in one day. So I'm very
Excellent.
proud
Very
about
good.
that. Also, if they go to my website, phyllisayman.associates.com, and they hit the book tab, it will show up there, but it will still take you to Amazon.
Hmm.
So, I hope people do that. I think it can be very helpful for people to really find out how they can become more informed, so they're more effective advocates for their loved ones and for eventually for themselves, because it's about our future selves.
It's the book for grandma to give to the kids, right?
Right.
Because right now you're in making a living. I've got my first grandchild on the way, so everything is, that's where their world is, and
Right,
they're not
right,
even thinking about down the road.
Right,
All they
right,
are is
right,
like worrying about when mom and dad get old, what are we going to do with them?
right, right.
So having a book where it prepares you for what is wrong, but what could be right,
Yes.
addressing the situation, it's like, well, I'm not going to send my mum and dad to a situation like that. We need to do something about it.
But
Right?
it's interesting you said that because that's what my daughter was saying last night. She said, of course, she knows from me. Of course, my whole life has been working in nursing homes, and they always heard the stories, the unfortunately horror stories for the most part.
Yeah.
And she said, "Listen, I would never allow that for dad or for you. Why would I do that? I mean, I know what it's like. That's not saying that, but you see, therein also, sometimes you can't help that at some stage. And I think that's where the guilt comes in.
Mm.
That's where the conversations are important, because sometimes the situation is such that that's the only thing that's available, because of the condition or the situation, and you can't get the help. And so people have to work through that also. You know,
We're in a time period, like the universe gave me a saying 3 years ago. The universe is here to shake us up, to wake us up, for us to stand up and change it up and grow up in higher
right,
vibration
right.
and double and try and grow up. Um, that transition is going to take another 4 years. There is no going back to normal. We don't want to go back to
I
normal because
agree.
normal didn't work. It is about raising our consciousness, raising our awareness, realizing what systems are broken, what can we collectively do to put them right. The
Right,
conversation openers at the present moment are essential. We're not
right.
doom and gloom and saying, oh, this is the problem, and hands up in the air. It's about, this is the problem, but these are the solutions. And what are we going to feed? Because what you
That,
feed water
absolutely,
will grow. So the
absolutely.
book at this time, not only with the amount of deaths we're seeing in nursing homes due to COVID, but the horror stories that have been there before, the systems that could make it different,
Right.
could make it more viable, could make it have more dignity and respect, could still give more meaningful purpose to the seniors that still want to have a life, but just can't live on their own anymore. Let us also not forget loneliness.
Oh, absolutely.
I
And
mean,
I dedicate a chapter to that, about isolation and loneliness. I
yes,
talk about it. If anybody, has a loved one in their midst, even if it's not their relative, if it's a neighbor, touch base with the
yes,
person. If you're socially distancing, if you can get their phone number or even knock on a door and say, "Hi, I just want to make sure you're okay." That's equally as important, because isolation and loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And it has a lot to do with depression, with cognitive decline. And that impacts physical decline. It's a killer, actually.
it is.
So I would
Yeah.
encourage people, in that regard also.
Yeah, yeah, I did a show, Loneliness is a Killer. It is. And, it is as simple that if somebody who still lives on their own, knock on the door, check, are they okay?
Right.
Can I shop for you? Can I do anything? How about, even if you don't want to go in because you don't want to affect them, how about a Christmas card and a little box of chocolates or a little
Oh,
plant,
that would be right. What a
and
good idea.
knock on the door and just say, just to wish you well, I'm thinking of you at Christmas. They
Right.
may be on their own, but at least they know somebody cared if they were living or dead.
Correct. Listen, I have to say, several weeks ago, I got a text from, a friend. We were friends for a short period of time. He's moved to another part of the country, and he, just texted me to say, "Hey, listen, how are you doing? Are you okay?" It meant
Mhm.
a lot to me.
Yes,
And people never know when other people are thinking of them, and when they find out other people are thinking of them, it boosts their mood, it boosts their
yeah.
spirit. It means so much to people. So just as you say, I would encourage people to let people know, knock on a door,
Mm.
say, "Listen, I just want you to know that I'm thinking of you. Are you okay? Do you need anything? Is there anything I could pick up for you?" I think that's terrific.
It lets people know that people still care, they're alive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
especially right now, I mean, here in Canada and BC, there is no Christmas for us this year unless it's in your household. That's it. And the same for people that are completely alone. Do you have a bubble that you can get with somebody else, so that you're not on your own, because they realize that that is effective, whether they're young or old.
Right,
And
absolutely.
yeah, we have this wonderful thing called Zoom and this thing called Skype and thing called Messenger and the thing called a
Right,
phone. You know, the thing that
right,
you dial, well, press,
right.
and reach out. And we've got to make that effort. And
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
is the
I mean,
important thing right now is this pandemic is still going to be a major crisis until at least June next year.
right,
The vaccine, as it slowly comes about, obviously, when you have a new president in there, he's going to, grab the reins by the horn. Right now, he's crippled, and the amount of deaths
right,
that are going to happen between now and then is just horrific, and it will go down in history, but at the lives' expense, and especially people denying that this is even a thing right now. It is. Sorry, folks. Here's the straight talk from this senior. Grow up.
well, this has
Have
been great.
some respect. Give
I,
some dignity to someone. Put on your goddamn mask and stop complaining and whining like a child.
I agree. And, I want to encourage people when you talk about straight talk, the podcast is on the Voice America Empowerment Channel, Senior Straight Talk, and on popular podcast platforms. So if people want to take a listen,
Definitely.
I think they'd enjoy it.
And most certainly need to, I'm going to send you a couple of people, and I know that you would absolutely love
Oh,
to.
absolutely.
And
That
that
would be
the
fantastic.
and that this is not the time to write us off. This is the time, we are our tree is abundant of wisdom fruit,
Yes,
ready
absolutely.
for the picking. This is the time to pay attention, to ask questions, to give us
I
value.
agree.
And to all those seniors out there that have still got something to do and to contribute, do it. Do it. Don't wait for anybody else's permission. If this
Right,
is something you've always wanted to do and you can do it and you don't even know how, when I first started my network, believe
right,
me, I didn't know what I was doing. I
right.
learned as I went.
Exactly.
And the whole
Exactly.
thing is, please don't give up on life. Right?
I
Get out
agree.
there and live it right to the very end. And when your exit comes, go with grace.
I agree. This has been great, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Give your site again. Will you spell your name for people who are
Oh,
not seeing
sure.
it?
Phyllis, Phyllis, Ayman, Ayman, Associates, ASSOCIATES.com is my website. And I think if you go to Amazon and put in my name, Phyllis, Phyllis, Ayman, the book Dignity and Respect should come up.
And give
And
the name of your book from last year as well.
oh, overdue quality care for our elder citizens.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what it's all about for
You know,
me.
the straight talk seniors, the overdue, and the dignity and respect. I think there's a theme going on here. And it's one that, as I said, as seniors, we need the straight. We haven't got time.
Right,
Haven't got time to
absolutely.
coddle you. This is the time for you to wake up, step up, change it up, and grow up and realize that there is a problem that you need to be a part of the solution.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Sarah. This has been great.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much, love. And to remember, everybody out there, we are the solution. All we have to do is be willing to step up, ask the questions, get the conversation going. The system has to change, and it lies within us. So until next time, bye for now. We hope you enjoyed the show. We look forward to bringing you more shows. Please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows and you will see the incredible lineup of genres and shows that we have for you. We are here to make a difference in your life. Thank you for listening. Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where we discover the communities that are making a difference in the lives of others. Our self-discovery is something we are all making on our life's journey. Here you will find the people that will be your guidance, that will be your inspiration, that will be there for you in support on your journey of life. Do enjoy. Our next show is